All right, let's talk to Luke from Howard's Cams because they signed back up 2023 sponsor 2024. They're back here for us. Dude, again, we're excited to have you back on for 2024. And I'm excited for what this means because we're going to be adding a Howard's Cam segment to the show now that's on Wednesday night. So the coolest part about that is it means we're going to get to dive deep into some stuff. And we're going to talk about some of the deep dive stuff later on because you got something you talk about custom camshafts and kind of give us a lesson on that. So uh,
Yeah.
let's not start out with that. Let's start out with something kind of funny because I can only imagine the phone calls that you get and the people that are building this random stuff that their uncle said they need to buy this cam, and then you help them figure it out. So let's go through some of those.
Yeah. So for those that follow me on Facebook, there's been a couple that I felt the need to post on my feed because they were just so ridiculous. Um, Last week, I had a guy call and complain to us about how he had to use a mallet to install his camshaft.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's not good. That you shouldn't have to do that.
yeah, not that I'm like not a professional or anything, but if you're wailing on the end of a cam to get it in your engine, please put down the hammer and step away from the engine.
Yeah, that last cam bearing's a little tight.
Yeah, and then I told him to send it back to us because it probably got bent in shipping, and he didn't believe me. So
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
yeah,
So
that was a fun one.
yeah,
So is
so
that
cam.
what actually happened, or?
Oh,
Yeah, so believe it or not, cams getting damaged in shipping is a pretty big problem.
Really?
And it's crazy because go through basically trials with these outside companies that come in for like FedEx and UPS, and they actually test our packaging, and they give it a pass fail in order for us to be basically liable to submit claims and do stuff like that
yeah,
on bent or broken cams. And I just told this story literally yesterday um, to a customer. My superior, Eric, was walking around our shop with one of these guys, and he was asking him all sorts of questions about how we packaged a cam, or like he doesn't see how we could break them. And Eric was just walking through the warehouse and grabbed we have a stack of just dummy cams that are basically cores that are no good to even start with. And he grabs it and he just chucks it up in the air in the warehouse and lets it bounce off the concrete. And nothing happened to it. I mean, it was probably junk after that, but it didn't break in half. And he turns and looks at the guy and he goes, "Now," he goes, "you tell me that our packaging's not very good if we're getting cams that are broken in half." And you saw what just happened there.
wow, dude, like, how's
So
that even happen? Like, is it rolling down the conveyor belt and somebody like gives it the elbow?
we probably get 2 or 3 broken cams a month through shipping agencies.
Wow.
I I've never seen somebody break a cam except in an engine. So I would love to see what these guys are doing.
Right, like you just had, like there's just this camera following this cam box, and it's just going along the
Yeah,
conveyor belt, and then it just
yeah.
goes.
We've had them go out to people, find out that they're bent, and they straighten themselves on their way back.
Oh,
So
convenient.
even weirder. So we get it back and we put it on a roller and they check out fine. And then it's cross your fingers and hope it doesn't get bent again on the way back to the guy. But
Wow.
yeah, that's some of the wilder stuff that happens in the shipping world.
Well, you've been with Howard's for a while. You've obviously been a big part of. I mean, dude, I don't know how many times I've asked you cam stuff, and like there's a lot of stuff that I ask that never comes to fruition because it's again, windshield thought from my brain as I'm driving along. Hey, what if we did this? And you're nice enough to do that for us. And we appreciate that. And I think you've done that for a lot of the drag and drive community, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of PRI was like the biggest reality check on what you guys have done for us as far as a company in this community, because it was just nonstop drag and drive guys
Yeah.
through throughout PRI, and then even after PRI, it was following up with all those guys. And
Yeah.
there's going to be a couple pretty cool combos going together for 2024 with our cams in them, and I'm excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, if you guys didn't know, I mean, obviously Howard's Cams is the official valve train of Drag Driver Pete. So we appreciate you guys coming on and again, it's and doing that. So let's talk about some products that maybe have come out recently that
Mhm.
we'll talk about that, and then maybe you can kind of sneak in some secret squirrel stuff.
Yeah. So the biggest thing that's hitting the market in 2024, we basically put them out on display at PRI, but it's our TrackSmart H-beam rods. So yes, we're a camshaft company, but we basically top to bottom, crankshafts, pistons, rods, everything. So Brooks Flaherty, Howard Cam, and my
Yeah.
ride this year, awesome. But TrackSmart is going to be a budget line H-beam rod for that like 1,000 to 1,200 horsepower guy. Right in line with like what a set of like the Eagle H-beams would be. So
Yeah.
very affordable, and I will be making sure a pretty wicked sale on them going on in March through Summit. So we'll make
Yes.
sure that we get on here and talk about that and plug Summit and plug us for that, and make sure you guys can take advantage of those good deals. But something that we haven't had in a long time is Ford connecting rods, and we brought back some Ford stuff for the TrackSmart line. So we're pretty excited about
Ah,
that.
like
And then
small block and big block stuff, or like Coyote or Mod Motor stuff.
just small block, yeah. Coyote, I would love to do some Coyote stuff, but the amount of time it's going to take us to develop that stuff, it's pretty wild. Yeah,
Well,
Coyote.
I mean, let's be honest. Those dudes are making 1,000 on factory stuff. Factory cam can go to like 1,200 or something insane. So
Yeah. I mean, when everybody's breaking records with those things, I mean, it was rod, piston, stock camshaft stuff going mid sevens. So
yeah,
what do you really need? Yeah.
right. That's exactly right. Well, cool. Yeah, I'm excited to have you. We'll definitely talk about that in March for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of talking about some of that stuff. Well, H beam rods. I mean, dude, like, what else, man? What else been going on with you guys? I know wintertime's probably. Is it like car guy stuff? Like, is wintertime your upgrade time? Like, where you guys are doing new stuff, or is it all the time?
Kind of wintertime. Wintertime is like all the boring, like not car stuff for
Oh,
it's let's set up all our new vendor profiles. Let's make sure that places like Summit are ready to go for like all of our sales when that stuff hits. It's
yeah.
making sure that the price increase that comes once a year is going out to all of our people. So it's that time of year where I don't really get to do a whole lot of car stuff. It's more of like admin stuff, but we got to do that to keep the parts rolling off the shelves.
That's exactly. Well, you got to plan ahead, man. You can't be like, "What are we going to put on sale this week?" It can't be like that.
Yep.
I see Rodney's rods here asking any Ford FE stuff coming from Howard's.
Yeah, I mean, we have a huge offering of Ford FE valve train parts, roller cams, roller lifters. We don't have a rocker system for them, just mainly because of being a shaft rocker system. But no lower end stuff for FEs.
Yeah.
You gotta hate yourself to really want to build one of those things.
That's what I was gonna say.
They're difficult engines.
Yeah, I bet. I don't mess with anything Ford engine wise anyway, so we just usually put LS in that kind of stuff if we're gonna do
Oh,
one of those.
you're basically messing with Ford stuff. It's just a copy of the Windsor, right?
I mean, right. What's Jeff here saying?
Said
He
I
reached out last year and picked up a Howard's Camp for Son's 502 stroker in the 96 dually. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's a super cool rig, like OBS, Ford truck, dually, I think it's extended cab, super cool deal. And then he's pulling a Fairmont, box top Fairmont to the track with it, just right on the money.
Yeah, that's goals right there, right? The tow rig has to match the car to a certain extent.
Oh yeah, yeah, and the kid's like 19 years old, so I mean, like you would expect that from like somebody in their 40s, but it's not that. It's a kid doing it, so it's even cooler.
That's awesome.
Well, let's talk about some of the stuff that you work with generally. I mean, I would think we talk about off the shelf cams a lot, and
Mhm.
that's really for 99.8% of the people that you talk to, that's probably going to be okay. And generally, the kind of stuff that they're looking for is probably in stock and ready to go most of the time for what they're looking for.
Mhm.
5 or 600 is more than enough power for most people. And those cams are probably, and valve train stuff is all in stock, right? Or mostly in stock.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, let's be honest. LS is everything. So, if you have an LS engine and you can't find a camshaft in stock from us, you're not looking hard enough because it's a third of our warehouse.
Yeah.
Small block Chevy, pretty plentiful.
Yeah.
Fords have been an issue, to be completely honest. So we're still trying to catch up with Fords. We have lots of cores in stock, but when you don't have a lot, you spend a whole lot of time trying to catch up. And we're still trying to do that since I think our cores came in early November.
Wow.
So when we're 6 to 8 weeks out on a cam, takes us a while to catch up. So hopefully by spring we'll have a lot better selection right off the
Yeah.
shelf for a lot of that stuff. But
That's cool.
yeah, like you said, 90% of the people out there, there's really no reason to go custom, especially if you take a look at our catalog and see how big it is. If there's
Yeah.
not something in that catalog that fits for you, then you have something pretty oddball, or we're trying to do something pretty big deal boost is usually when we need to go custom.
Yeah. So let's dive into that if you want to for a little bit here and kind of talk
Mhm.
about, one thing I like to do with some guests, especially like with you, is like I ask you, hey, what should we be talking about? And your literal thing was like, let's dive deep on whether they need a custom camshaft or and what their limitations are. So kind of school us a little bit, give these people at home a lesson.
Yeah, we were actually talking internally about a week or two ago that we aren't convinced that a lot of people really understand what a custom camshaft is. And what it came down to is that most of these guys were looking for a custom recommendation, not necessarily a custom camshaft. So they were completely content with a off the shelf part number because we would start talking to a lot of these guys and they'd be like, well, I want something I can buy right now. I was just wanting a recommendation. So we're finding out that a lot of people, their perception of custom is just something that they spent time with somebody on to figure out
Mm.
what part number worked best for their application. And that was kind of not eye opening, but it was definitely a different aspect of how we've been looking at
Yeah.
for a long time, just because these guys they didn't want something special. They wanted something off the shelf. They just wanted it custom tailored to whatever their combination is. But then there's the other side of that where you have a guy calling in for a 355 Chevy with a 205 runner and an air gap, wants a custom camshaft. Well, we can do a custom camshaft for anything. But what what I enjoy doing in my job is debunking a lot of the smoke and mirrors that have been made in the camshaft industry. So many people think that there's so much magic in the camshaft, and honestly, the magic that's there is you can't see it. But everything else is just math. The only magic in a camshaft is the actual lobe design, duration at 50, lift numbers, lobe separation. None of that's magic. It's just a math equation. So if somebody really wants to know why I think their car doesn't need a custom cam or why maybe it does, we'll sit down and I'll go through the math with them. We'll talk about CFM demand of the engine. We'll talk about what the thing actually would require for lift for a certain RPM, and talk about what duration actually does to their engine and what a different lobe separation might do to their engine. And usually after talking through them with all that, we can find a shelf part number that works really, really well for them.
Wow.
Because at that point, I'm showing them that the fact that we have something on the shelf that's 530 lift opposed to their cam or their heads are good for 600 lift, so they feel like they need 600 lift. We can go through that math and I can show them that their engine doesn't need 600 lift because it's breathing fine at 530 to support the power that they need, and then all of a sudden they don't need anything special. They can just use something off the shelf. So that's, like I said, that's probably the most fun I have, is educating somebody on what little of a camshaft an engine usually needs to get the job done.
Well, and let's talk about that for a second, because then that gives you the opportunity to have some vacuum. It drives better. It's easier, and it's like valve springs. Oh man, this thing will go to up to 600. Well, I need 598, bro. Like,
Yep.
dude,
Yep.
calm down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's valve springs are something we could talk for a whole nother show on, because we want to make sure that you're close enough to a coil bind on your valve spring that it's actually working as a dampening effect. So let's say you have springs that are good for 600 lift and we have 500 lift. Well, that's 100 thousandths of usable area that spring is really just oscillating freely. It's not, it's hard to explain unless you really have a picture to show it, but we want to make sure that the spring is right for the amount of lift that we have and not just completely overboard. So a lot of times these guys that have heads that are set up for 600 lift, I'll talk to them and sometimes we'll shim them down a little bit tighter. But like you said, I mean, if we can do something with 550 lift or 530 lift opposed to 600, that's less overall movement in the system, and it leads to longevity if it's all set up right. And
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Well, and again, it goes back to, the difference in making 507 horsepower and making 514 horsepower,
yeah,
522 horsepower. Like you're literally within, now if you're ragged edge trying to get to that 999 number NA or something like that, maybe, but like for the most part, for most of us guys, we're looking for burnouts and ice cream. Like that's what we
yep,
want to do. I want to make cool noises. How many people call you and go, "Hey, man, I just want one that's got good chop. I just don't want to just choop, choop, choop."
yep, yeah, a lot,
Yeah, a lot.
yep,
That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. The
Well,
difficult part is somebody that calls and wants it the chop, and then they want a factory torque converter. They have power brakes, and they got like a 297 rear gear.
yeah,
Then we
they
have a
just
little
want
bit
it
of
to
trouble.
sound
But
cool in the parking lot as they're cruising to Sonic.
yep, yep, yep.
Yep. Yeah,
So
we've been down that road. Sorry, Eric, real quick. We've been down that road with customers with narcoleptic stuff. You got a guy, you build a 550, 600 horsepower setup, and they're like, "Well, I don't want to spend the money on a converter." I'm like, "Dude, you're gonna hate your life, man. You're gonna hate it.
Mhm.
Like, you're not gonna have any fun with this." And then they drive it for a little bit, and they're like, "This thing is a turd. It's a dog. Oh, it doesn't make that kind of power." And then you put a converter in it, and it's like, "Wow, I should have done this from the get go."
Yeah, yeah. Converters and camshafts are two things that'll make or break a
Yep,
combination.
yep, yeah. You can really screw it up the wrong way and
Yeah.
do something very wrong. But man, when it's right, whew, and that's where having like a conversation with a guy like you, and then also understanding that you're gonna need to have a conversation with that converter guy as well. Like, you don't need to just
Mhm.
go, "Oh, I'm gonna order this one because my buddy has it."
Yeah, yeah, that's something that I fight on a daily basis because people will call us for a converter recommendation. And yeah, the cam has a lot to do with it, but I mean, you go onto Summit and you type 3200 stall converter in and you pick out a 3200 stall converter and you put that, let's say there's three different vehicles all with the same
Yep.
5.3 LS engine, but there's 1,400 pounds of difference between the three vehicles. Every single one of those vehicles is going to want a different converter. Just
Oh,
because
yeah.
we recommend a 3,200 stall for a camshaft doesn't mean you should go buy a 3,200 stall. You should
Yeah.
call your converter guy and get him to spec you something that's appropriate for the weight of the vehicle and the gear ratio, etc.
Yep.
Um,
Sorry, Eric, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, when somebody calls up and wants a recommendation for a cam,
mhm.
what kind of information do they need to have ready for you to give you for you to be able to give them a recommendation?
Yeah, so a lot of that is going to depend on how wild the setup is. For the general guy that is just doing like a street car, or like let's say it's going to be like a 12 or a 13-second deal, I just need to know basic specifics about weight really doesn't play into it a whole lot from what I've seen, but I really want to know specifics about the cylinder heads. Telling me it's a Brodex cylinder head or an AFR cylinder head really doesn't tell me anything. I want to know model number if you can get it to me, because then I can look up flow numbers real quick and we can know where we can be on the camshaft really quickly if I have flow numbers for the cylinder heads. Gear ratio does have an effect on it depending on how much converter, if it's a stick shift car. Compression
Stick
ratio
shift.
is huge because um, a lot of people are running on pump fuel. So pump fuel is extremely volatile and it gets hard to make something work on pump gas unless it's got VVT or coil packs. That really opens up the options. But for your general small block Chevy guy with a carburetor and um, a distributor, I mean, if you're 10.5 to 1, you're going to need a little bit of camshaft for that thing to work on 91, 93 pump gas. So make sure you know your compression ratio. A lot of guys will call and ask us for a cylinder head recommendation for a camshaft. Realistically, we should be doing that the other way around. We want you guys to have a long block picked out before we spec a camshaft.
That makes sense. And so when folks are like for your home builder, like a guy like me, I mean, like, dude,
Mhm.
I've never taken an engine to an engine builder to have anybody put anything together for me, right? It's come right out of how GM built it. I would think that's probably pretty easy. I call you, I go, hey, dude, I want to make 500 wheel. This is the turbo I've got. This is the converter and trans I've got. Help me out.
Mhm.
And then you're like, oh, yeah, part, blah, 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 blah. And I go,
Yep.
cool, send that one tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah. Turbos make things easy because what we do on a turbo setup is really just target an RPM range.
Yeah.
Cylinder heads affect things, but not to the magnitude that they will. That's like nitrous or NA. So if you have a street driving turbo car and it's a relatively decent sized turbo, it's almost the same cam for every single combination unless we
That's
really
awesome.
want to get specific on it. Like there's a reason why companies like Brian Tooley only offer a couple cams for turbo cams or a couple
Yeah.
cams for supercharger stuff. It's because it they really just work like that. It takes
Yeah.
any cylinder head and it makes it good. That's what Boost does.
Yeah. Yeah. All cams are turbo cams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, to an extent, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for
So
sure. Well,
so a
go
guy
ahead.
like me with a twin GT45 LS, you could probably pop a cam number off right on the back of your head, right?
Yep. Yeah, we got one that's like 231, 235 at 55, 90, 618 lift on a 115.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then a
Yep.
huge converter in that car, and let's go. Put a gear vendor in that
The
thing. Let's
thing
drive that dude.
is the cylinder heads are so good that you can put a good bit of cam in them and they just seem like they don't need a lot of converter, especially with the
Nice.
smaller cubic inch stuff. So I mean, that and something that makes horsepower needs a little bit of a tighter converter, so they just drive nicer anyways.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's when Eric, we need you to finish that car up so we can take it on and drag and drive.
I got two different converters sitting in the garage right now.
Perfect. That sounds right up my alley. So what I need to do is come up there, and we need to take that on 6 summer. Now suddenly I'm gonna be gone 3 weeks of June too.
You
Sorry,
better
Eric.
you better save another week to come up and help me get that thing ready.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. Well, Luke, I want to say thanks for coming on tonight, dude. Thank you for being patient. Again, we were going to do this last week. He jumped on here with us tonight, man. We really appreciate it. And again, dude, we're going to have you on often because this. Anytime I talk to you, it only raises more questions because I don't know stuff. That's the problem.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a great source of knowledge. You're a great dude to talk to. Where can people, follow along on your stuff on social, and then how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so Howard's Cams, both Facebook and Instagram. We try to be as active as we can on that.
Yeah,
I am the guy that wields all that as well as do all the sales managerial duties. So there's
nice.
not as much as I would like on there, but we do try to do quite a bit on there.
Yeah,
And then Lukey B Speed and Service for my personal stuff on Instagram.
that's awesome. Well, cool,
Well,
dude. Well, thanks again.
yeah, I know we've said it before, but Mike and I need to make a trip out there at some
Yeah,
point and get a
Yeah,
tour of the facility.
yeah. When it's warmer, otherwise Mike will freeze.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm out.
right.
We'll
If
be
it's
carting him
ridiculous like
around.
this, I'm not coming. I don't care how warm it is in
Yeah.
your car. I'm not going. So I'll come in that 3-week window where it gets in the 80s.
Yeah, pretty much.
Perfect. All right, dude. Well, thanks a bunch, man. We appreciate it. And I promise we're gonna make time. I'm gonna come up and see you guys. Eric is a little closer, so maybe he can make a day trip out of it. But I definitely want to come up there. I wanna throw one of those cams down the down the warehouse.
You know what? We can do that with a junk cam just to prove how, how good these cams
Right.
are.
That's what it needs to be like into the trash can bucket. That's what we need. We need some kind of competition. It'll be kind of fun. We'll mess around with that a little bit.
Here we
Yeah,
go.
I like where
Yeah,
this is going.
I know that's right. All right, dude. Thank you so much again. We appreciate you coming on tonight.
All right. See you
Yeah.
guys. Have a good night.
See
Thanks,
you
Luke.
guys. Dude, I'm telling you, that guy's way smarter than we deserve.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
It's
I just absorbing knowledge because
yeah,
I know a fair amount of stuff, but some of that
yeah.
stuff is over my head.
Oh, I mean, well, again, it's way over my head, and that's what's good about having folks like that. Not just as friends of ours, but friends within the community, is because like folks can literally message him, find him on Instagram, message us. I'll get you his contact info, and we can go right from there. And it makes it easy to again. He talks about a lot of times an off the shelf cam will get get the job done, but then dude, like then you get it a lot faster as well.
Yeah, and
So
you don't need to guess what cam that you
yeah,
think you might need when there's a person there that's ready and willing to answer your question and spec you out a cam.
yep.
Just pick up the phone and call.
Well, and have a realistic idea of what you want. Again, the whole entire goal of the old truck was to make 500 wheel, do burnouts when I wanted it to, and be able to drive around and get ice cream. And that's what we did. And we put all of that stuff together: the converter, the 4L80, the cam, the turbo, everything was matched for that, and that specific plan. So
Yeah.
we weren't last, we weren't trying to get every last bit of power out of it. So
Yep.